Hey everybody, Caleb here. Today I've got a little sidetrack for me. This popped up as a little project I'm going to try to do. This little bass here doesn't need a whole lot. It's not playing great, I think. And I was just asked to do what I can to it to get it maybe going a little bit better. So we're going to try that. The action's kind of high and it could use a little bit of cleaning. So we'll see what we can do to get this playing a little bit better. So I think our number one problem here is that this neck has too much relief. I set a straight edge on there and there's a huge gap in the middle. I need to tighten the truss rod. Fair amount. That is a big gap. So I'm not going to do that with the strings at full tension because tightening the truss rod puts more tension on the strings. So I do want to lower them quite a bit. Alright, they're nice and loose. Now we'll take a truss, or we'll try to adjust the truss rod now. I've got a Allen wrench that should fit in there. It's on this side. It's got a little cutout, I think you can see there, for me to fit the wrench into. And then we'll just tighten that. It was pretty bad, so I'm going to give this a couple of, give it a little bit of adjustment before we go committing to it. That ought to be closer. So I'll tune this back up and we'll see where we're at. Alright, so I got this tuned back up and the relief is better. I was actually going to check it the old measuring method, and I'm still ended up maybe a little higher than I want to be. Come down to here. We go to the 8. So I could use just maybe a hair more tightening on there. And then we should be good. I guess I'll go ahead and do that. I think the action might still be a little high even after that. But then that comes down to bridge adjustments. But I want to loosen these strings again. And throw that final little adjustment in there. I think I might actually clean this board up if I can. However, I am a little worried that we're going to have some high frets as we go in here, and we lower the action. So we could maybe play with that idea just a little bit here once we get this neck nice and straight. Alright, that ought to be enough of an adjustment. Now, if I can find my fret rocker. Here we go. what I'm going to do real quick is run through these and see if any rock because I don't think the action is quite low enough and I want to do any adjustments I can do now while the strings are loose. I don't really want to loosen them again. I'm going to see if we need to do any fret leveling. There's a little bit of a high one there. We may need to do a quick level. Yeah. It's not terrible though. It's getting worse though. Alright, so we got a couple of high frets. So I'm gonna just real lightly hit this if I can get these strings out of the way. Now the string retainer is gonna fight me. Okay. Alright, so that should hold the strings out of my way so I can do a real quick level now that we got the neck straight. This shouldn't be too much because it wasn't too bad, but I just want to make sure that it's good while the strings are loose. There's a little bit of wear up here that I'm trying to maybe work a little bit of that out. And I know that I had the high frets mostly in this area, so I'm trying to make sure those get leveled. But it's all got to come together, otherwise I'm going to end up with low frets. So I got to make sure everything is even as we go. Alright, I think that's probably pretty good. We'll need to crown those now. And of course we'll have to use the biggest crowning file because we're working on bass frets. And what we're doing obviously is taking the, so I just made all these frets flat, and now I'm taking them from flat back to putting a curve in them so that the string only meets at one point. The cool thing about this is because I just filed that flat on here, I can see the light shines off of that flat spot differently than it does the curved areas. So I can see that get thinned out down to almost nothing, just barely a sliver as I'm crowning these. Alright, how how are the fret ends? They're pretty good, but while we're here, I'm going to take my fret end dressing file and just hit them real quick. So I'll move the strings out of the way. And this is just making sure that the ends of the frets are rounded over. This isn't a make sure that it plays right thing, this is make sure that it plays good. It feels good to play. And this file, it's got a safe edge on it, so I can set that on the board, and I'm not going to do any damage to the board, but the edges are the file, so I just do pretty much one long stroke, and that'll take off any sharp edges. Towards the end here, I have to do a little smaller things because we get close to the body, and I don't want to hit it. So I'll do the bass side now. I'm used to going the other way. It's hard to get in here. Alright, that's all the consequential ones. Next thing we'll do is polish these frets. So when it comes to polishing frets, especially on an instrument that hasn't had any work done in a little while, I'm not going to worry about taping up the board. The board needs cleaned and reconditioned. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit these because this is the fastest way to go. I'm starting with some 600 sandpaper. And this will pretty much knock off any file marks that I put in leveling or crowning, smoothing them out. And if I move the strings out of the way, I can kind of hit the edges as well. That'll help smooth those out a little bit more. Alright, I think that's actually looking pretty good. So we'll set our 600 aside. Then I've got some 1200 sandpaper. This is where they start to get shiny. Alright, that's pretty good. Next thing we'll do is we'll get the micro polishing pads out. We'll start doing those. This is the way I prefer to do it, definitely. These are really high grit polishing pads. I'm a big fan of these. They have a proprietary grit, but they go really high and they get nice mirror finish, and it's just like with the sandpaper. They say the grit on them on one of the sides, but I always wear them off. So I tally mark them so I can keep track of which order to go in. Those are starting to shine up. It may be getting close to time for me to order a new set of these. I've had these for about a year, so everything I've done in the last year or so has been on these. They're still doing a good job, but it might be getting close. These go a long ways when all I use them on is fret work. And of course, there's a link in the description of the video if you were ever looking for these yourself. There should be for most of the tools that I use. Alright, yeah, those are looking good. Alright, those are looking good. So, we should now have a really nice polish on there. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's looking really good. The problem now is the board looks dull. But that's okay. It looked pretty dull before we got started, so it's time to clean it up. I'm going to take a razor blade and I'm going to scrape it. Usually works best if I kind of angle it here so I can get good access here. We'll make sure the strings are out of the way. And we'll just scrape across the radius to keep it looking good, but just clean that right up. That one looks good. Even better. I'm just now seeing this board has a light streak in it. Which I didn't get to see before we got started. Now that I'm finally cleaning it, you can really actually see it. Let's roll this the right way. There's a little bit of a scratch in the board right here. I don't think that was me, but I am going to try and work it out. All right. So that's looking good. What do I do with my brush? Here we go. So we'll brush that off. And that board is looking way cleaner. Now the only thing left to do to that board... Ah, nice smell of wood. Only thing left to do to that board is oil it. Everybody's favorite part. So I'll get out my Be Good wood oil. This doesn't take a whole lot of oil to do this. It's occurring to me that this is the only bottle of this I've bought, so I've had this for a long time. It a little goes a long ways. I usually just run a little bead, and then I work it in with my fingers. This is basically butcher block oil, so it's real nice stuff. There's a little bit of beeswax in there to help everything go real smooth. I really like the way it feels on the board. I think it makes it real slick on the wood. Yeah, that's looking really good. So now I will go grab a clean cloth and we will take off the excess. Alright, clean cloth. We'll wipe off any excess. Work it in maybe a little bit more. Yeah, it's looking good. Very cool. Okay. Do my hands a little bit. Okay, so we should be doing good now to put those strings back on there and work on the action. So we can go ahead and do that. I forget how big these strings are. Don't play bass often enough. All right, cool. So, we're back up to pitch here. We're ready to start thinking about action height. The problem is, off the top of my head, I don't know what the action height is supposed to be, but luckily, I don't have to. Bass guitar action height.
According to Sweetwater, a good bass setup is all about compromise, and as a guitar technician, you always have to find the best balance between playability and the most amount of fret buzz that you're willing to tolerate. Some common action measurements on a bass guitar are around 5/64ths up to about 7/64ths.
So somewhere in that range, which in thousandths of an inch is about 90 thousandths. About 100 thousandths on the bass side to about 80 thousandths on the treble side. Okay. So now that we know that, I can take my little stick here and put this in here and see we are high. We could probably come down every bit of 20 thousandths. So I'll need to go get a little wrench. Maybe I've got one here actually, to adjust these saddles here, because we will want to drop them. Let me turn my tuner off. Nope, this one's too big, so I gotta go find a wrench now to adjust these saddles to drop the action height down to about 100 thousandths to about 80 thousandths. So we're talking like 100, 95, 90, 80-ish. 190, 85, 80. Probably somewhere in that range. All the individual saddles will let me do that. So I'll go find a smaller adjuster and we'll come back and adjust her up. So the only one I found was on a multi-tool, but that's okay. So we'll lower this saddle down a little bit here. It's going to affect the tuning as it moves. So I want to make sure that I stay in tune. And then I can check the action again. It's a little off screen, but I'll just tell you what it says. Oh, we're about 107 or so. We can go lower than that. Oh yeah, just under 100 thousandths. Perfect, perfect. And so now the next string, the A string. This at about 115 thousandths. So we'll lower that down. We want to be under 100. Oh, that's perfect. That's about 90, 97 or so. We're just a little over 95. So we want to hit somewhere in the, well, actually, we go a hair lower. I don't think I want to take this all the way down to 80, the G string, but I want to get in the 80s. 85 or so. Because I'm not playing this thing, so I don't know how heavy-handed the person playing it is. And of course, if you play real heavy-handed, you're going to want a little higher action. Yeah, just over 90. Cool. So I'm going to work on the outside string first. I think that's easier. The G string is almost 130 thousandths. That's way up there. So let's sink that down. I did say G string, right? I think so. Back to G. Yeah, we're a little over 80 thousandths, 83, 84. All right, then we'll do the D string. About 120 thousandths. I want that to be closer to 90 in that area. About spot on, 90 thousandths. I think that's gonna be good. I think that should be way better. Should play way easier. I think I'm gonna actually play with it for just a couple minutes, just to make sure that it's playing good and not buzzing. And then we're gonna play with the intonation on this thing. I really want it to be intonated good, and it should be really easy with, the adjustment from back at the bridge. So let me make sure that we're not buzzing anywhere with the new lower action. We shouldn't be, but let me just make sure, and then we'll come back and we'll play with the intonation. So, I think we're doing good on action. I want to look at intonation now. I want to try to get the tuner in a spot where you can see it. It's going to be upside down for you, but I've not got my usual large monitor to see what I'm doing, so I can't just show it to you. I need to see what I'm doing. So we're in tune, and then at the 12th fret, are we in tune there? See, we're flat. So if we're flat, the saddle is too far from the nut, so it needs to be moved in. So I'll just do that a little bit. Might just grab a regular, no, hang on. Alright, then we'll retune. And then we'll check the 12th fret again. Still a little bit. Oh, that saddle wants to move. There was our problem. More, really? There we go. I say it and it wanders off, but I think that's it. So, I'd move that saddle quite a bit to get it in there, but we got it. Let's move on. I think they're all going to be flat. So, well, that A string was pretty flat as well. If I use the E string as a judge, I can estimate about how far I'm going to have to move it. Still a little flat. I would say that maybe this bridge was placed a little too far back, because we're getting to the upper end of my adjustments here. There we go. D, probably flat. Yeah. Still just a hair flat. That's looking good. That G's flat. Yep, every single one. So, because of how close I am to the end of my adjustments, I would say that this bridge was probably placed just a little bit too far back when they built it. Still just a hair flat. Oh, come on. There we go, spot on. So now we should have some spot on intonation, except for that E string still. Let me push it just a little bit more. There we go. All right, so we should have some perfect intonation. The action should be great. I'll do a little bit of cleanup, and I think we'll be done here. Just a quick setup on this thing. Some bread and butter. It's been a little while since I've got to do just a setup. So we'll just clean this thing up here, and we should be good to go. Well, usually I would go over to where we usually finish videos to play an instrument, but it's being used at the moment. So we're going to sit here and play. I am plugged in nice and wirelessly, so we can actually get some bass. And it sounded good. Plays great. This thing's playing great. It sounds good. I'm so out of practice playing bass, it just shreds my thumb, but it's doing good. So I should be good to take this back to where it belongs. I think we've done some improvement. I did go ahead and buff it out a little bit to help make sure it was nice and clean. It should be way more playable than it was. I didn't notice any electronic issues. I tried to play it a little while before I really jumped into this so that I would know if it was being goofy with the electronics, but I really didn't notice anything. So it doesn't make a whole lot of noise when you turn the knobs. Both positions work. I can switch to the other position. And even the tone works. So, I think we're doing pretty good. So I'll go ahead and take this back to where it belongs. Thanks for watching this little bass setup video. Hope to see you later.